Hello, YouTube family. It's Lisa here, and I just wanted to give you an update. I've been meaning to make this video for some time now, but just either I'm not finding the time or making the time. But I thought it was an important video, important information to share. So here it goes. I was about 5 weeks postpartum. Everything was normal in my postpartum bleeding up to that point. We went through all the stages that it's supposed to go through, nothing out of the ordinary occurring. At 5 weeks, I even stopped bleeding. I think I went a couple of days where I was not bleeding at all anymore. And then I want to say it was Saturday, I think 2nd of May, I started bleeding again. It was light, and I honestly didn't pay attention to the color, but I just assumed that since my quote-unquote postpartum bleeding seemed to have stopped and this had restarted, that it was maybe my period coming on. Sunday, it increased a little, just like I guess a period would. And so that convinced me even more that it was probably just my period. And then Monday, that would have been Monday, May 4th, I dropped my husband off at the airport. He was going to Georgia for training for work, and he was going to be gone for 3 weeks, which was fine. I still thought in my mind that the bleeding I was having was just from my period. Tuesday morning, when I got up to use the bathroom, I passed a small clot, and the bleeding was a little heavier. And this time, I guess once I passed the clot, I kind of paid more attention to the color of the bleeding, and it was a bright red color. Why I didn't catch that or pay attention to that prior, I don't know, but I debated calling my doctor and just finding out if I should go in, if this is normal. And around 11 o'clock, I believe, I had laid on the bed with my daughter, and I was feeding her. And I know that those of you who have periods know that sometimes when your flow is heavy, you can feel the blood coming out. And that's kind of what I felt. It just seemed like a lot. And I kind of started pressing on my lower abdomen. And when I pressed on the lower left side, I don't know if I dislodged a clot, but I can assure you that within seconds, there was blood everywhere. Bright red blood everywhere. Of course, it freaked me out, because being a nurse, you know bright red blood is not a good sign. And then being that it was coming out so fast, I mean, it was dripping out like a leaky faucet. It freaked me out. I didn't have anyone to help me. My daughter was laying on the bed. Luckily, I fed her enough that she was content. I pulled my underwear and shorts off because it was coming out, and then a couple of good-sized clots fell out, and then it was still dripping. So I happened to have those bed liners, and I grabbed one of those and was just holding that to myself to absorb the blood, and it was soaked within minutes as well. At that point, I knew there's no way I'm going to be able to drive anywhere like this, and there really wasn't anyone to call because my husband was out of the state. So the only option I had was calling the ambulance, because it was coming out so fast. And so I called the ambulance, and they showed up, and I still just kept that Chuck's pad there, but I put underwear over it just to kind of hold it in place. So I had to walk down and unlock the door so they could get in. And I just had a bloody mess on my carpet just from it dripping everywhere. But anyway, I went to the ER. Was there several hours, and the longer I was there, it just seemed like the bleeding, it wasn't a constant flow of blood, which I think if it had been, they might have taken it a little bit more seriously than they did. But I didn't have anyone. I didn't know what to do. I needed someone to help me. I had the baby with me, and luckily she was doing well, and the nurses I had in the ER were very helpful. But I called my husband's supervisor just to let him know, because I really didn't have a way to get a hold of him. He had a cell phone, but they weren't allowed to keep that on them, and he didn't give me a contact number, so I let him know what was going on, and he said he would get a hold of him and to call me. And they even had, since I was alone, he said, we have a crisis support team, and he said, I'm sending a couple out that work here to come to the ER and help you with the baby and just to stay with you, which that's about an hour away drive from where we live in Reno to where my husband works. So I knew it would be a while. The bleeding slowed down. I honestly think it just started to claw it off again. But the thing with the ER we went to, there's like a ton of PAs, and that's who assesses you and sees you. PA students and PA doctors that have finished their training. They eventually decided to draw blood and check my urine, and then they did a pelvic exam, which of course the PA had to remove a lot of clots, and he realized that this is something. He said, a lot of people come into the ER saying they're bleeding postpartum, and it's usually not anything. He said, but this obviously is something, and he was going to refer me to the OB on call, and they went ahead and ordered a sonogram. So as they were wheeling me down to get the sonogram, the couple from my husband's work showed up, and so they stayed with my little one while the sonogram was done, and then they finished that, and they took me back to my little ER room, and the doctor, this is the first time I saw the doctor, the actual MD, and he was just giving us the results of the sonogram. He was very vague about what it showed. He said that the uterus was very vascular looking. He didn't say that there was retained placenta, but he conversed with the OB on call, who happened to be the one that delivered me when I had her, and they decided they didn't want to do anything invasive. They thought in their mind that maybe with the bleeding I had done, that maybe it dislodged whatever might have been there. So, and my blood levels were good, my blood pressure, everything was good. Now, my blood pressure was elevated, but they didn't address that. Anyway, so they decided to go ahead and send me home and to follow up with my doctor the next day. So I went home, and during the night, that night, which was a Tuesday, at midnight, the same thing happened, like a gush of blood, big clots, and then it would stop, and then 4:00 in the morning it did the same thing, gush of blood, clots, and then it would not stop completely, but it definitely wasn't gushing out like it was doing. So I was thinking to myself, no, it's not getting any better. Something's obviously wrong. At 8:00, nothing happened. At 9:00, when my doctor's office opened, I did call to try to make an appointment. The office lady said, well, let me get your records from the ER, and I'll have to ask the doctor if if we can add you, because I guess they were overbooked. I'm not sure. So I went the whole rest of that day, nothing happening. So in my mind, I guess I did start to believe, hey, maybe I am okay, maybe it's all right. About 3 p.m. is when my doctor called and asked me how I was doing. And of course, because I hadn't bled anymore like that, I said, I think I'm getting better. I think I'm okay. So he said, well, I'll see you later this week. And I said, well, I have a follow-up with you on May 11th. And he's like, okay, well, we'll just see you then. I said, okay. Well, an hour later, 4 p.m., the same thing happened. Gush of blood and some clot. So I thought, okay, obviously I was wrong and not getting better. It was 4:15. I called the doctor back just to let him know, hey, something's going on. Of course, he'd already left for the day. There wasn't really anyone to talk to. The office girl took my information, said she'd call me back. And she finally called me back, but she said the doctor was gone for the day, but she talked to one of the other doctors in the practice, and basically what she said was that until I became symptomatic, then there really wasn't anything to do, and if I did become symptomatic, go to the ER. So, right around that time, the couple that, had been there with me had happened to stop by my house to check up on me and see how I was doing. And, I was worried. I was scared because I started bleeding again. And my main worry, I guess, was because I was alone, my daughter and me. And I was afraid that if something happened to me to the point that, maybe I couldn't call for help or anything, that she would be here alone without anybody to help her. And that was my main worry. So they said, why don't you come stay with us? They were going to offer that when I was sent home before, but it was my husband's boss that showed up and decided to drive me home. But anyway, so for peace of mind, me and my daughter went and stayed with them. And Wednesday night, basically the same thing happened, okay? It was Wednesday, 4 p.m. when it happened, and then nothing happened again until midnight. Same gush of blood, and then again at 4, same gush of blood. Thursday morning, around 8 o'clock when I woke up, I had a little bit, but not like it had been. So I was kind of a little bit relieved, but I ate breakfast around 8:30, and then I was sitting there. It was just about 9 o'clock with Lori, the wife, because she didn't have to go in to work until noon that day, I believe. So she was there with me, and we were talking, and I felt the blood come out again, and it was like it had been. It's just instantaneous. It just gushes out. And so, and it got everywhere. I mean, it got all over me like it does. It just comes out like a faucet being turned on really high and then turning off. I got myself to their half bath, cleaning myself up as best as I could. She brought me another pad, so I put that on. And then I was going to go upstairs where I was staying so I could change my sweatpants because they were saturated. They had blood. And so she had the baby. I walked upstairs. I made it to the room I was staying in. I kind of felt a little out of breath, a little tired from climbing those stairs, and so I kind of sat down there and I started feeling bad. But I knew I had to go change myself, and of course more blood had come out and it saturated the pad I had just put on. So I walked to the bathroom, which was right next door to the room I was in. I sat down, I changed my pad, and I really started to feel lightheaded, and I got all hot and sweaty like I was going to pass out. And so I got up and I made it to the hallway, and luckily they had kind of like a loft type thing where you could look down. So I made it to the hallway and I kind of yelled to her and said, I think I'm going to pass out. And so the next thing I remember, I was laying on the floor. She was over me. So she had run upstairs, and she said I'd only pass out for a couple of seconds. But still, I passed out. So they called the ambulance again, and they came and picked me up and back to the ER. And this time they checked my blood, and they noticed that my blood level had dropped from 14 to 9. And the fact that I had passed out, they obviously knew something was wrong. Luckily, my doctor was there already doing procedures on his other patients, so they went ahead and just sent me to same day. They did a D&E, which is a little bit more invasive than a D&C. And then they, recovered me, and then I was sent home. And I ended up staying that night with the same family just as a precautionary. By then, John's work had decided to send him home because of the issues I was having. So he came home that Friday, and I stayed with my new friends until John came home. And everything after that, I had bleeding again, but that was from the procedure. And I just went on 27th of May, a couple days ago, to follow up with my doctor. And I'm not even bleeding anymore. He said the pathology did show some placental membrane in whatever it is he scraped out of there. So there was some retained placenta. And it was scary. I think the weirdest part for me was that it showed up after 5 weeks, and that the bleeding was not a continuous type thing. It was, I can't say it was every 4 hours, but that was the weird pattern, is that it would gush out, and then it would stop. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because it could or could not happen to you. And having the retained placenta, you would assume it would show itself a lot sooner, maybe even before you left the hospital. I can imagine it showing up at 5 weeks out. But anyway, everything's good now. Riley's here. You can see her. She's taking a nap. She's going to be 2 months this coming Saturday. And the time has just flown by. I don't know where it's gone, but I'm really happy that she's here. We love her very, very much, and we're just trying to enjoy every minute with her. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them. And once again, I thank you for still keeping up with my story. Finally had a happy ending that we were waiting for over 5 years. She's here, and sometimes it's hard to believe that she's here after all this time and all the things we did to try to have a baby. But for those of you that are still trying, please, as I always try to remind you, never give up, because you just never know. I apologize if this video is weird in any way. I'm recording off of my new cell phone, so if I'm not looking into the camera, it's because either I'm forgetting to look into the camera, or I forget where the camera's at, so I apologize. But anyway, thank you again to everyone, every single one of you that takes the time to watch my videos. I really hope that I've been able to help you with something. Otherwise, have a great day and take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.